With rap reputation of being linked to crime, the number of rappers seeing themselves behind bars is getting bigger every year. YNW Melly struggled with the police ever since he was 16. Come back to 2015 when he faced the 3 counts of aggravated assault and 1 count of discharging a firearm in public. This is only the beginning of Melly's criminal history, but looking back, it's easy to see that he was going to have issues with breaking the law for a while. After the situation in 2015, things are pretty chill from Melly other day. A few possession charges, nothing too crazy, happened until he was arrested in February 2019 with the alleged murder of his 2 best friends. To make the situation even worse for Melly and his friend, YNW Borland, are also accused of attempting to stage the death of their friends as a drive-by. Since being arrested on the charges, there's really been little development. The case we know so far is that Melly has pleaded not guilty, and that if he eventually is found guilty after what's going to be a long trial process, prosecutors in Florida are planning to seek either life in prison or the death penalty on him. Investigation may have thought that a case that may lead to life in prison or the death penalty from Melly is a lot. And then, once again, Portland currently is being investigated for being connected to the death of an off-duty sheriff deputy back in 2017. Although it only gets to be officially named suspects in that case, they have been named by apparently high-ranking law enforcement sources, saying that investigators believe they were in some way involved in the death of that deputy. So, no matter what you think of Melly, things are already not looking good for him. With the odds already stacked high against them in this case of his 2 best friends being murdered and being connected to the death of a law enforcement officer, the possibility that he hasn't seen a lot of time behind bars is looking more and more likely. Now, Kodak Black has become way too familiar with courtrooms in jail cells, unfortunately for him, going to have to just keep getting used to it. Kodak's history of trouble with the police goes all the way back to when he was 15, when he was placed in the juvenile center 3 times in 1 year. But things have only continued to get worse when throughout the years now and May 2019, he's looking at potentially being locked up for a really long time. All we can spend in the tire, but he's looking at Kodak's criminal history of the most recent situation. This trouble began in May of 2019. While Kodak was arrested on his way to Rolling Loud, he was arrested for apparently lying about official documents while trying to purchase a firearm on 2 separate occasions. A few days after the arrest, he was due to be released on $500,000 bond. But the release was revoked by a judge who called Kodak a danger to the community. Because he wants to have access to guns, he later ended up pleading guilty to the charges and he was sentenced to 46 months in prison. And things only continued to get worse for Kodak. Shortly after being sentenced to 46 months in prison, it's reported that during a fight, he sent a prison guard in the hospital after grabbing and holding onto his crotch. Kodak apparently had such a firm grip on the guard's junk that his abdomen and intestine walls were breached. Jeez. It later came up that Kodak was under the influence at the time of the fight, and he was speaking in rehab while in prison. Surprising about this incident, it has happened before his sentence, and it didn't end up costing them more time in prison on its own. However, the judge did have this to say in regards to Kodak's recent record. Young people do stupid things, but the problem is you would do stupid things when you were 15. That doesn't mean that Kodak actually got to be serving 46 months though, after the news to come out reporting Kodak altercation with the prison guard. We also know that he's facing 2 more felony charges for possession of a firearm by a convicted felon. The first charge being from one that he purchased in January of 2019, and the other one linked to a weapon that they found on him when he was arrested in May of 2019. And he has charge of that Kodak being tried for it could lead up to 30 years each and make a possibility. But the 60 prison on top of his already 46 months, probably be another year before we know for sure how much time Kodak will face. It's definitely not looking good for him right now. The past 2 years have been a wild ride for Trey K. The situation began when he was one of the 7 people involved in a home invasion, where 2 people were shot with one of the victims being murdered. Tay K was accused of hiring 3 friends to help him during the robbery, one of which was eventually found guilty of murder in March of 2018. Tay K was only 16 at the time of the robbery took place. He was later released in connection to the incident. He was placed under house arrest, and this is when he infamously cut off his ankle monitor and fled soon after, releasing a single, the race we bragged about being on the run, and according to prosecutors in a later trial, admitted there are some other more serious crimes. The fact of the song's lyrics were actually using his Tay K at the scene has an unfair decision by some, but experts in the matter star of clear evidence against him. When the University of Georgia law professor had this to say in a Genius interview, the song is used to show that he was charged use on house arrest, cut off his ankle monitor, and for the jurisdiction, the song indicates he thought he was guilty. The song is being on the run after being charged, a multiple crime. And if you look into the literal simplistic lyrics, might suggest he tried to beat a case and didn't, so he fled the jurisdiction. As some people have no problem with this, but others believe that it's going to lead to a worse trend of going after rappers, where literally every lawsuit that might reference a crime and may lead to rap losing the raw deal, detailed lives that rappers have lived firsthand. It appears the words might be used against them at some point. 2 months after his escape from house arrest, TK was captured in New Jersey by U.S. Marshals during the time of the run. Allegedly murdered a 23-year-old man during a robbery in San Antonio and assaulted a 65-year-old man during a robbery in Arlington. July of 2019, TK was sentenced for his involvement in the murder during a home invasion when he was 16 into a total of 55 years in prison. Along with those 55 years, he's still awaiting trial for the alleged murder that he committed while on the run after escaping house arrest and the assault of the 65-year-old man. With the way things are already gone for TK, he has no chance for parole for 27 years, and even that will only happen if he manages to not get into any trouble while behind bars. Considering he's already being caught sneaking phones into prison a few times, it's most likely he's going to keep himself locked up for 27 years. But who knows what might happen to those 27 years? Maybe TK's another race plan for us. Back in 2016, Bobby Shmurda was sentenced to 7 years in prison after a long trial for charges he is being tried on since his arrest in 2014. Shmurda's a very big deal, although he ended up with a 7-year sentence, was actually a better deal than what he was facing at first. When he was first arrested in 2014, Shmurda was being charged for allegedly leading a Crips offshoot called GS9. Police accused of being involved in multiple crimes, including murder. It all came back up Bobby Shmurda hard, and so Shmurda facing a possible sentence of 25 years to life. And Shmurda took a plea deal, pleading guilty for a 4th-degree charge to possess a weapon and a 2nd-degree criminal weapons possession. However, before his sentencing, Shmurda actually attempted to overturn his plea, saying, quote, "I want to withdraw my plea. I was forced by my attorney to take the plea. I was forced." Judge, however, did deny Shmurda's request was denied to withdraw the plea. Stuck with the deal they originally made. Shmurda sentenced to the 7 years in prison. It is unclear what may have ended up happening if he was able to overturn a plea, but it's likely he would have ended up with a much harsher sentence. He already served 2 years by the time he was eventually sentenced in 2016. The latest he could be released is December 2021, if it goes well. Bobby's expected to be free sometime in December 2020. This is if his parole hearing, which is scheduled for August of 2020, ends up going well for him. Although Gucci Mane has been out of prison for over 3 years now, and he's managed to completely make a turnaround in his life, his rap sheet is unforgettable, with a history of problems with the police since May 2005, when the war was placed on his head for 1st-degree murder, a charge that was eventually dropped due to lack of evidence to disprove a self-defense plea. Gucci's seen it all with all the stories our rappers facing the same sentences that we've covered throughout this video. Look at Gucci's story on a possible positive note for the Gucci history of trouble with the law, including assaulting someone with a champagne bottle, assaulting someone with a pool stick, and possession of weapons and drugs. In Mane's career, he has been arrested a total of 9 times, and all this leading up the prison sentence. He infamously received in May of 2014 the lead up to it since he began in December 2013. Why the time things were looking really bad for Gucci. Keep it charged in federal court with 2 counts of possessing a firearm as a felon. At the time, he's looking at a possible maximum of 20 years in prison. The things he got slightly differently, Gucci would be locked up until 2030. However, in May 14, Gucci agreed to a plea deal, pleading guilty to possession of firearm by a convicted felon. And there was always a huge reduction in sentencing, lowering it from a possible 20 years to totally 3 years and 3 months ago. Gucci, by this point of time, we already know the outcome of Tekashi 69 is ridiculous court case. But it's also good to look back at just how much time he was potentially could end up serving, and what exactly ended up leading to the situation in the first place. If you don't already know, December of 2019, Tekashi 69 sentenced to 2 years in prison. After a year-long trial process where we saw 6 nights Tekashi 69 can be no rainbow-haired gangster, to being a star witness in multiple cases, fighting the 9 Trey Bloods. Serving time during his trial process, Tekashi's expected to be released sometime in late 2020. If everything goes perfectly for him, in the last 2 years, the stuff pretty long time to be in prison, things looked a lot worse. 69, the leads up to his recent sentencing started in November of 2018. What happened? Several other alleged Night members were charged with racketeering conspiracy and firearm charges. At first, 6ix9ine is pronounced as innocent. It seems like that case is going to be like any other, but a January 2019 Tekashi pled guilty to racketeering conspiracy and 8 other charges. The minimum sentencing of the charges he pled guilty to was 47 years, the maximum of life in prison. What filed to 2019 with a long trial process. Where is 6ix9ine admitted to his own involvement with nitrate and the testimony which led to convictions for 2 high-ranking Night members. This cooperation with the feds with a huge part of him making a sentence way lower than expected, and the judge that sentenced him to say, "Your cooperation was impressive. It was a game changer. It was complete. It was brave." Although Tekashi 69 managed to get much smaller than what he was originally expected, the biggest factor is that what cost is made better than being sued. Even after this, he will be labeled as a snitch, says there's no turning back from what he's done. Some even said that they fear for his family's safety, and there's no telling what may happen once he's out. Regardless, 69 made it to drop a minimum sentence at 47 years down to only 2. That's something that won't be like going for a long time and may influence many cases in the future. The situation involving 21 Savage was very confusing for everybody, probably even 21 himself when it first happened, and this isn't because of such a rare situation. It's because it's a situation that by current laws in the United States has no clear answer. In case you weren't aware, 21 was arrested back in February of 2019 by ICE, who claimed that he had been overstaying his visa since 2006. This was surprising for a lot of people. It gave it to East Atlanta. It turns out that he was actually born in the United Kingdom, getting moved to Atlanta when he was 7 years old. His representatives said that he has, quote, been continuously physically present in the United States for almost 20 years, except for a brief visit abroad. Just basically meant to get lost his legal status to be in the United States when he was very young, and no fault of his own. There's no easy way to fix it. While he was still a child, at 2017, 21 applied for a new visa. A visa which is usually given to people who are a victim of crimes and helpful investigation of those crimes. That application was related to near-fatal shooting 21 as a victim of a 2013. Unfortunately, however, if the situation gets more complicated than that, when 21 was arrested, it explained that he's a convicted criminal, and that's a reference to a felony charge he pled guilty to in 2014. The conviction was actually dropped, but according to experts, dropped felonies are still considered as convictions and immigration cases. 21 was released on bond, but I still look at it important to the future, and he's currently waiting for a hearing. 21's lawyers are planning to fight the possible deportation on the grounds that cancellation of removal is available to undocumented immigrants who've been in the US for 10 years. It can show their deportation what caused hardship to a spouse, parent, or child was here legally. Since 21 has 3 kids and he's been in the US for 19 years, he pushed them all, but only time will tell what ultimately happens. Let us know your thoughts on this in the comment section below. Also, be sure to hit that subscribe and notification button to stay up to date with all of our new videos. Until next time.